Oh my goodness. It's always good when they say local folks make good, but she's been going for a while.
Crushing it.
Done crushing it. We are so happy to welcome, I guess we could say kind of former KHTKer, right?
Yeah, there's time. She had the show here.
Yeah.
I guess maybe TV as well. But yeah.
Counters
our own.
Doing sidelines for CBS Sports and so much more right here in Sacramento, California. Dana Jacobson. Dana, it's been so long. How are you?
Well, first of all, can I just say, Carmichael Dave, you have a show.
I know, right?
We see her.
It's been that long.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear her.
Okay.
You can't hear her?
Jason can't hear me.
Jason, you can't hear?
I literally cannot hear.
Jason has a thing against me.
Apparently. Something's going on in Jason. Something's going on. Here comes Chris. He's coming to
I see what's going on. Sorry, my bad.
Dana, these kids and their equipment, they don't know how to handle it. Jason's kind of new to the business, but you've been very busy, and we're also very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, truly. And the last couple days have been crazy in seeing people from here because it's been a while, loving every second of it. And I've heard some similar sentiments, which have been amazing at Golden One, like from people that were doing stats at Kings games when I was doing them, or the guys that still work at Sac State that are doing the tournament that I'm working with now because they're doing the tournament, or at Davis that are helping out, or whoever it may be. But it's really nice being back. And it is very nice to hear that because this was home for a long time.
I missed the beginning part. I did catch the end. So I'm
I
here.
said I don't like you, and I'm only coming on because it's Carmichael Dave. And I was so thrilled that Carmichael Dave has a show because to me, he was just calling in all the time as Carmichael Dave. And if it wasn't for him, I would not be doing this because I never liked you. You and Alva, never a part of my life.
Full shade is what I expected.
I was interning on the weekend when she had her when she was had her show. I was interning. I just was doing the math and all that.
Yeah.
So,
we were trying to figure out too, Dana. When you left, did you take all the Kings wins with you?
I know. So I said I was talking to a couple of people from the CBS station here yesterday. So when I came, it was similar to when you guys came because they had come and the Kings weren't doing well. I said, I came, the Kings were bad. Mitch Richmond, Olden Polynice. Who else was here? I can't even think now.
Brian Grant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad days. And then they got good and it was amazing. And I left and I think there was like one more winning season. It was playoff season and that was it. Sorry. But they're back.
They're
incredible.
Back. Yes.
Incredible.
When I know you're too humble for this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. When you get a chance to come back here, I'm sure you get excited because you get to see everybody, a lot of old friends. I saw, except for Jason, I saw Steve Tebbs yesterday, by the way, too. And you get to see a lot of.
I've been hanging with Tebbs. It's awesome.
I mean, it is really kind of like a reunion, especially for you folks that have gone on and become so big time. But at the same time, does it make you kind of stop and just you get those memories flooding back in from before and really kind of appreciate the road that you've been on and the things that you have accomplished?
Oh, I mean, in every way, in ways you can't even imagine. First of all, I loved my time here. I think maybe somebody asked me this. I wouldn't have left here if it wasn't for a national job. I wouldn't have left here to go work in San Francisco or New York, or it was ESPN. I mean, I left because it was ESPN, and if ESPN is the job, I'm going. I loved what I did here. I loved everything I learned. The way I always describe it is I learned how to do sports here. I mean, I came here having done sports and news and, in Northern Michigan, I didn't cover pro teams. The first NBA locker room I ever walked into was the Kings locker room. The first NFL team I covered were the 49ers and the Raiders. And the first MLB games I was really going to, I maybe had gone to spring training once to do something on the Tigers when I was working in Michigan, but everything was really based here. And so the appreciation is beyond that. I learned how to do my job and I learned how to tell stories here, which is what I love doing, which is how I ended up sort of doing what I do now. So it's incredible appreciation, but also Tebbs and I were sitting there laughing about how we used to sit up in our little section in that court. Jason knows what I'm talking about, the corner section.
218.
Yeah, exactly. Watching games and we had our fantasy basketball going. Club Said, remember? I mean,
Yes.
it was awesome. Yes, we were talking about like everything that we did and this group of friends that we became, and it was amazing. It really was.
How is it that Tebs and Dana haven't aged, by the way, too?
I know.
Literally
I
a
know.
day. What is this
Thank
national
you.
stuff you guys are on?
I put a little makeup on for you there this morning.
Well, part of what you were out here for, obviously, was for the tournament, and you saw something historic yesterday. You never know what's going to happen in the 4 games you're covering on day one. I don't know how many people thought Princeton could win or would win, but it did happen. What was that moment like for you, being around it and then having to report on it and interview players and coaches and so forth?
That was incredible, and I don't know that I didn't see it coming. And I had done a 215 upset when, if you remember the Denzel Valentine, Tom Izzo team, and I can't remember the year. So I did that one with Middle Tennessee. And that was one where Michigan State just couldn't hit a shot. So I don't know that it was a matchup issue as much as Michigan State couldn't hit a shot and Middle Tennessee was hitting everything. I think yesterday was, I think Tommy Lloyd said this, his team just couldn't put them away. And Princeton hung around and did what they did. And you want to give them a shot from 2, you want to give them they're going to be able to go to the basket. Okay, they'll go to the basket. They've got a 3. They're going to take the 3. They just allowed them to hang around enough that they were able to take advantage. It was incredible to watch them have poise on the floor. That's always the question that I have. Teams that are not these huge programs, what kind of poise can they have in the moment? Because you can be within 2, but can you then pull ahead? And can you hang on to a lead in the end? And can you defend and not foul? And they did. And Mitch Henderson, their head coach, obviously has been there and done it. And to know his ties with Pete Carrill, who has been there and done it, and that he just passed away this, I think it was in August.
Yeah.
It was very special. And, you know, with what we do, I've spent 3 days kind of talking to the people in the program and the team. That was really special watching that happen, because in your head on Monday, when I'm talking to their sports information director, I'm like, man, can you imagine if you come to Sacramento where Pete Carrill was and we all loved him here, and you guys pull an upset the way Pete Carrill would pull an upset in the tournament? Like, that'd be great. And I'm sure they're thinking, we have the ability to do it. Can we do it with these players? We don't know. It depends. And I think, you know, Coach Henderson was honest with us about his players. He said, look, we've got the personnel. We think we have the best personnel that can do it. We're not their size. We don't have their size and speed. We know that. But we have smart players who do have talent. We're not an untalented roster, but everybody looks at the Ivy League and sort of just pushes them aside. And they had the poise and they had the ability. And in that moment, Arizona let them hang around and they took advantage of that. And that's what March is. It was awesome.
Dana Jacobson of CBS Sports joining us. And we were talking earlier about Sacramento maybe being Princeton West, because we were talking about the connections between Jeff Petrie, obviously Coachy, Monty McNair, their GM now, all Princeton. You get the upset out here. I'm curious, Dana, I want to ask you a technical question. I'm always so fascinated. We know Katie Christensen out here. She's a dear friend of ours, and she used to be doing sidelines for the Kings for the longest time. I think it's such an underratedly difficult job, if that makes sense. And when you're in the moment here and you're doing multiple games, multiple coaches, people are in the heat of the moment. I'm curious, like for halftime, you're talking to a coach, you got 1, maybe 2 questions, and then he's out. When do you lock down your question? Do you keep it open until the last second? Okay, that's incredible.
Okay, so here's full disclosure, okay, especially yesterday, what yesterday is. So when you have 4 games, 8 teams, 4 games, first thought in your head all day is, don't let me say the wrong kid on a team. Because there's so many names. We had 2 Kobe's yesterday. There's so many things that are similar. I think it's harder for our play-by-play and our analysts in that regard.
Sure.
But with the questions, we had an injury in the Northwestern game. There was an injury that happened to one of the Boise State players with 2 minutes to go, to one of their key players. And I'm trying to find out if he's okay, because this is huge to them. I'm back towards the locker room. I'm watching the clock. I got to get out there because it's the opposite end of the court where I'm going to have to sprint to get the coach. And the game's close. And I'm not thinking, what am I going to ask at this point? And it was one of those games where I feel like everybody was playing. Northwestern was certainly playing their game. They were playing defense well. They were defending the three. I mean, it was kind of textbook, I think, for them in my head. That makes it harder for me to ask a question because it wasn't something that was jumping out in my mind. And I'm like, I'll think of something in my head. I'll figure something out. But I'm also trying to get an answer on this injury. And I'm watching the locker room and I'm trying to get information. And then it's like, okay, just get back. You got to go back. And all of a sudden, before I know it, I'm walking out to go talk to Coach Collins. And literally, it's third game of the day. I have no idea what I'm going to ask him. I asked the worst question of my life, and I don't really know what it was now, looking back. And I sort of was rambling because I was thinking I'll come to something that will sound smart eventually. And he answered, and it was fine. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, when they won, and after I did that interview, when we were done, I said, I got to apologize to you. This was off camera. I said, I have to apologize. That was the worst halftime interview I've ever done. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I asked you, but that was unacceptable. And he laughed and he said, we were fine. There are two things. Those coaches in that moment, they just want to get to the locker room and talk to their players. Yeah. And I've always joked with people and said, I could look at a coach and say, Coach, what color's the sky? And they're going to answer with whatever they've already in their mind thought.
Turnovers.
Here's what I'm going to say. Right. Turnovers are a problem. Right. Whatever you ask them, they're going to go with where they are. But it is a difficult job because you do want to get an answer. Yeah. But you're not, I think if you're doing your job, you're not set with a question. We're doing these under 12s and under 8s. So that if people are noticing at home, it's the 12-minute timeout that we have and the 8-minute timeout. We're talking to the coaches during the game. And I was like, this is horrible when they first implemented this last year. It's actually worked okay. That's the only one where I've sort of set in my head that I'm going to think to something they've told us the day before about how they want to start the game, what they want to do. That's my go-to of, at least with the under 12, with that coach, you said you wanted to do this. Here's how the game's going. Are you going to do this? Unless something crazy has happened in the first, start of the game, you're still getting into a flow at that point. So I look at it that way. Otherwise, you better be thinking of your question when you're walking up there because you got to be paying attention to the game. And that's a hard thing to do. I know people think it's easy. You're sitting at home going, that was a horrible question. You go sit out there and do it.
Exactly.
And then tell me. Because there are like 20 questions that you can think of, but you're also trying to ask a question you might get an answer to.
Yeah. Well, Dana, we're so thankful that you're thriving, that you're out here, that you were able to join us. It's great to hear from you and see you out here. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Proud of you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. That is Dana Jacobson. You can check her out all throughout the tournament this weekend right here in Sacramento. Yes.